Coming up on GC Conversations, you may have noticed some of the exciting projects going on around campus. We'll speak to Michael Rickenbaker, the university's architect, who will explain more about those. Welcome to this edition of GC Conversations. I'm Brittany Johnson, and our guest today is Michael Rickenbaker. Michael, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Michael, you are the university architect and director of facilities planning. Explain to us exactly what that is, what you do here on campus.
Well, I wear several hats. As a university architect, I oversee the planning initiatives of the campus. So I'm one of the portions of the ingredients, or one of the players in helping define what we plan, how we plan, what we plan. Very influential in what our architecture looks like, how we grow it, change it, evolve it, renovate it. But I'm also the director of facilities planning, so I have a large group of a total of 6 of us who are in charge of all the projects in planning, all of the major construction. We oversee anything from small projects, the signage project that just was recently installed on campus, as well as we're also overseeing and being the university's eyes and ears on the Ennis Hall project that's just currently under construction.
Now, this is something you've been doing for quite some time. You have a long career list and have done this at several institutions, right?
Yes, I've been mostly a university architect, or an architect affiliated with universities. I did a little private practice before I started working at North Carolina State University about 28 years ago. I spent 10 years as a project architect there, so as a project manager, so I know the project management side of the story. I know how to manage projects, but I've been overseeing project managers, being the director for now going on 18 years. I was at Southeastern Louisiana University in Hammond, Louisiana, which is a lot of similarities with what's happening downtown here, is what's happening downtown there. A great place to live and work, and so I've been involved with a small town. Then I moved to Las Cruces, New Mexico, where I was actually over a system. We had 5 different institutions. We had the land grant institution, which was New Mexico State, but we had 4 other institutions across the state of New Mexico, from grants all the way to Alamogordo.
Okay, fantastic. Well, you mentioned it a little bit earlier, talking about one of the major projects that are going on here at Georgia College right now, and that's our signage project. Tell us kind of where we stand on that right now, and why we decided to add these new signs outside of our buildings.
Well, it started actually as a part of the master plan in 2005, but so it actually was recommended that we review our signage. There were signs on campus. Most people, actually, someone yesterday asked me why we were just now adding signs, and I pointed out that we had had signs before, and they went, "Oh, really?" So it was recommended that the university review and ultimately come up with a design for signage. I arrived about 3 years ago. We had a preliminary design, but we had never really completed the design, and we had not started any of the implementation. So I recommended that we, when it was possible, when funding was available, that we would continue with the design and complete the design. So now we have a set of drawings that's, a quarter-inch thick almost, of all the signage that we would propose at some point happen on the campus. Most campuses aren't able to do all their signage, and so you set priorities. So we really then said, what are our priorities? And really the sort of hands-down favorite was to go ahead and identify our major buildings. So the first project that we've done to provide signage on campus was to replace the major building signage on campus with new major building signage on campus. And that project is wrapping up as we speak. We're finishing it up. There's still some signs that need some touch-up, but those have all been installed. And so those are the major building signs, complete with the 911 address on it. I think historically we used to have the date of the building on it, but that could be confusing with the address. So we actually put the 911 address on our signs. And they're really rather lovely.
And they are very nice. So what's the next step with this project? This is just kind of phase one, as you've explained it, in an overriding theme.
Well, what we've done with this first project is we identified the major buildings. We felt that that was the first thing people needed to know how to find. And once you find them, that's good news. But a lot of people come to campus and get out of their cars and they're wandering across campus trying to find something. So the signs help, but not if you can't see them or not if you're not in the neighborhood. So basically our next project is to look at pedestrian signage, and we call it pedestrian wayfinding. I call it, it's a combination of the "You Are Here" signs that you can walk up and see where you are on the campus and then look for the buildings that you're looking for and hopefully find them. And also information on how to download the apps for the campus or access the website so you can gain information about the campus there. But also, we will have what I call the zoo signage. And zoo signage is, the lions are over here and tigers. Well, in this case, Parks Hall is over there, or Parks Memorial is over there. So we basically are looking at, first we found the building, now we're going to try to capture or help the pedestrian find their way. We are aspiring to the next project would be one that we would begin to look at our vehicular signage so that as you're driving around the campus, it will direct you into those major destination points of the campus.
Right, and the goal of this whole project is to make it easier for folks to get around, visitors as well as our students on campus.
Correct, and to know where you are when you get there.
Exactly. All right, Michael. Well, this is just one of the big projects that are going on here at Georgia College. Coming up in just a second, we're going to talk some more about Ennis and some other things that we have going on. And we'll be back with more of this edition of GC Conversations in just a moment.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
It's so shiny.
That's not a flower. We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
Taking medicine?
Oh, gosh, I forgot it.
Her nurse,
Need a claim number?
her personal assistant,
Let me just grab a...
her housekeeper, her cook, her accountant. When I started taking care of Mom, I didn't realize the challenge of playing so many roles. But above all, I'm still her daughter.
Visit aarp.org/caregiving to connect with experts and other caregivers. Together we can better care for ourselves and the ones we love.
The next 30 seconds can save you a lot of money. Just do your laundry in cold and stick to full loads. Auto-sleep your computers. Plug your gadgets in a power strip and switch it off when you're done. Headed out? Turn back your thermostat by 10 degrees. And drive sensibly. The more energy you save, the more money you save. Find other great tips at energysaver.gov.
And we're back with this edition of GC Conversations and our guest today, Michael Rickenbaker. Now, Michael, we were talking about the big signage project across campus, which the first phase is kind of wrapping up now. Another thing that we're just about in the finishing stages of is our Ennis project. Give us an update on that.
Well, Ennis Hall, a 1918 dormitory, and probably one of the most, in its heyday, one of the most prestigious places to live. The senior hall, it was Senior Hall, is wrapping up a major renovation. It is being revived as a home for our Department of Art. It's an incredibly exciting project. I don't have favorites in terms of our historic buildings, but if I had a favorite, it would be near the top, if not the top. It's an incredible building. We were very fortunate that the building never was renovated. Many of our historic properties were renovated in the 70s, and in most cases they gutted them completely and took all of its character away. And we're sitting in a building that's very similar to that. But the good news is that there was never really funding in place to renovate Ennis Hall, and so as a result, much of its original character is there. So we've been able to do what we call an adaptive reuse, and I would say it's an adaptive reuse with a real focus on preservation. No, we didn't need a dormitory, so it's not been restored. It's not a museum. It will have a gallery, but it is very nicely designed. Our architects, Lord Act Sargent, working very closely with us and our contractor, Garbett Chrisman, have done in collaboration with our GSFIC, the state funding agency, and our Board of Regents staff. We created a really great team working incredibly close with all the art faculty and staff, and the entire department got involved in coming up with what I think is a fantastic adaptive reuse of a building that will become a very an excellent art building.
One of the interesting things that you mentioned about this is, since it had not been renovated, you guys actually uncovered some things that had been hidden, per se, for the last several years.
Well, one of the things that we did with this project that was very successful is we were using a process of delivery that's called CM at risk, or construction manager at risk, where the contractors involved early in the phase, early in the design and construction, so that they actually were able to do what we call selective demolition of the building, where we took apart pieces of the building to find out what was there, so that when we actually renovated it, there will always be some discoveries, but we limited the discoveries, and we limited the amount of angst over risk and what we didn't know about. We uncovered it. And what was great is in the basement that we actually pulled off this, what we would call it, it was old enough to be historic paneling. It's the old, everybody's den in the 60s had this paneling with the black stripe on. It was all over the lower level, the basement of the building. We ripped it off, and there were these arches all over the lower level. We were actually stepped back and reconfigured the plan for the basement to take full advantage of those existing arches. But we put all the windows back in. In this case, the windows that had been blocked up in the 70s, 60s, late 60s and 70s, we opened back up and put replacement windows that were matched the historic documents, photos that we had. So we matched what was there originally. But the rest of the windows were taken out, shipped to a company in South Carolina, where they were reconditioned and put back in. So those are all the windows, 90% of the windows are original.
Wow, that's amazing. So where do we actually stand now in the process? What's going on in Ennis right now?
We're moving furniture in, and we will be moving people in. We're going to take a very a deliberate process. We're going to move in gradually. We're not going to move everybody in at once. A building that hasn't had people in it, I give buildings human qualities that they may or may not really have, but I like to think that they need to kind of get used to us. It takes us a whole year to really try to figure out how a building works, and it's really not good to take a building that's been predominantly empty and load it up automatically. So we're not going to move everybody in. We're going to move in gradually, but we will be all in by the summer. Obviously, all the classes and laboratories and studios will be functioning for the fall.
And we're actually having a big grand opening celebration, a ribbon cutting per se, later this summer, right?
On June 11th, and actually I plugged myself. I actually will work with the architects on a presentation where, after the presentation, where we talk about how we actually adaptively reused the building and also kept it consistent with its historic nature and keeping its historic spirit, but how we did that, and then I get to do the guided tour.
Ah, fantastic.
So that's the fun part.
We definitely look forward to that.
And no hard hats this time. I've been doing hard hats for months, so I'm kind of happy to be in a place where I can actually walk people through the building and we don't have to wear those goofy hats.
And just enjoy it. Enjoy the beauty
Yes.
of it. All right, Michael. Well, thanks for that update on Ennis. We're going to talk some more about some other projects that we have going on campus in just a minute, and we'll be back with more of this edition of GC Conversations in just a moment.
Oh! Checking your fantasy league?
Nah, just my 401k statement.
Nice. Where'd you find the money for that?
I just been saving a little every month.
I can't seem to save anything.
Well, what about all this? What about the money you're spending?
What money? It's gone before I can get my hands on it.
I got a pizza for a Todd.
Hey, can somebody spot me?
When it comes to financial stability, don't get left behind.
It's 547.
Get tools and tips for saving at feedthepig.org.
Yo, check out this chef, right? Right? That's so gay. That's really gay. Dude, look at those hands.
Please don't say that.
What?
Don't say that something is gay when you mean that something is dumb or stupid. It's insulting. It's like if I thought this pepper shaker was stupid and I said, man, and this pepper shaker is so 16-year-old boy with a cheesy mustache. Just saying. When you say that's so gay, do you realize what you say? Knock it off.
My new mom and I have a lot in common.
The great outside.
We both love the outdoors.
So shiny.
That's not a flower. We both love geology.
Oh, look. An igneous one.
That's not a rock. And she knows a lot about wildlife.
A labradoodle.
That's not a dog. Hanging out has been kind of fun.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. Thousands of kids in foster care will take you just as you are.
And we're back with this edition of GC Conversations with our guest, Michael Rickenbaker. Michael, we've been talking about some of the big architectural and facilities planning projects going on campus. Something else that's kind of on the forefront, because it's on front campus, folks are seeing it. We're doing some work on Terrell Hall. Tell us about what's going on there.
Terrell is one of my other favorites. It's there. Terrell is another. I refer to them as pre-Depression residence halls because there's a real difference between them. But they have a lot of ornate character that you might not find on a building that's post-Depression. Beeson Hall, which is a beautiful building, doesn't have quite the ornamentation that you have on Ennis and Terrell. Terrell, well, while we were doing Ennis, one of the things that we discovered on some of the columns that we were repairing on the existing building, we discovered that maybe there were some problems that were not very visible until we stripped them down of all their paint. And these are like 20 coats or 30 coats of paint. We discovered there were things that were hidden that needed to be repaired. We were doing a repair project on Terrell. And so we learned from what we learned on Ennis, and so we stripped all the paint off the columns on Terrell and discovered that there were some very important repairs that were needed. The great thing is we'll make those repairs, and when we paint it, the building will, for all intents and purposes, from the exterior will look brand new. It'll look like just as it looked in 1911 when it was finished, because it'll be the first time it's gotten a fresh coat of paint over columns that have had about that much paint stripped off of them.
That's amazing. Why is it so important to do things like this, to go back to make sure that the integrity of the building is preserved for the foreseeable future?
I think Georgia College has been very careful with its architectural history and has done a really excellent job of preserving its historic buildings. Someday I'll have to tell you why Chapel's one of my favorite classical buildings, but that should be another story. But we've done a very good job of keeping our buildings and maintaining them and maintaining their historic character. And on our historic front campus, that is a really important thing, I think, for our campus. It's a bit of our history that should not be overlooked. And Terrell is really it's a gorgeous building. It's the only one with turrets, so I mean, and I'm a big fan of rounds, so it's just something about it that makes it a very special building.
Right. Well, turning a little bit away from our historic preservation to some of the new projects that we have upcoming, there's something in the works for West Campus, possibly later this summer. What are some of the ideas that we're throwing around out there?
We've had a great opportunity over the last year working with student groups and a focus group and a number of, well, we've learned that it's a great idea that if you want student input, all you have to have is pizza. So we bought some pizza, sat down with students on West Campus and talked about how to make a better community out of the West Campus. What was missing? What could we do better? And we really sort of identified 3 areas of focus. One was the courtyard area between the buildings, one was the West Campus Center, and one was the the clubhouse space. This summer we're going to start on the 2 interior spaces because those were the highest priority in what students need or felt needed to be improved upon. We'll take the clubhouse and turn it into more of a study area. So it's going to have collaborative study spaces and individual study spaces, not unlike maybe a coffee shop environment, minus the coffee. You might have to pick up the coffee next door and bring it with you, but we will do improvements to the clubhouse for a study area. The computer lab is already in that building, so there's a good working relationship there. We thought that was a great improvement. But then we'll go to the West Campus Center, add televisions, make some improvements, bring in some pool tables and some ping pong tables. And it won't be exactly like the den that's in the Student Activity Center. A lot of students used that as a model though, so it will be maybe the West Campus den, if that's fair to say. But we will take the West Campus Center and make some improvements there to make that a livelier space, a space that students will want to go to. It's kind of an attraction to get them out of their rooms, but to get them together as a community.
Right, and that's something that's very interesting, to build that sense of community for those folks that may not be here on main campus but are still part of the campus and the campus community. Lastly, really quickly, we're also looking at some updates to the Arts and Sciences courtyard out there. Tell us about those.
We've been studying that for about a year, and at this point we're able to go ahead and begin the process of trying to make the space more alive. It's sort of a lost space. Most people don't even know it's there. I've actually had to give tours to some people who've been here for many years to show them the space so then they would understand what it was we were talking about in terms of improvement. So we are going to be doing a project this summer that will begin that evolution into a more dynamic space, a more used space. And I think it will be an attractive area. It is one of those spaces that was just sort of overlooked, and just it needs help, and I think we have an opportunity to make it a better outdoor space. We live in a place that has great opportunities throughout the year to use our outdoor spaces, and so we're looking at how we can begin to do that, not just in Arts and Sciences courtyard, but across campus, and how we create better spaces for gathering and community and study that takes place outside of our buildings.
And one of the many benefits of living here in Central Georgia.
It is.
Well, Michael, a lot of great and exciting things going on campus. Thanks for coming in and telling us about some of those projects that are going on.
Thank you for inviting me.
All right, that's it for this edition of GC Conversations. You can join us again next time.